Hello. Welcome to this edition of At the Mic. I'm your host, Keith Malinak. It's the Wednesday wild card. I'm just looking at the list. You never know what we're going to talk about on Wednesday. So here we are talking about Killdozer because I want to. Because I think it's a story that there's just too many people that whenever it just, it'll come up in conversation every now and then. And I'm just surprised that there's just not a lot of information floating around out there, at least in my circles. They just assume one thing, and there's so much more to that story. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do a wild card episode on it. And when I started looking for a potential guest for today's conversation, I found Aidan Mattis. And the guy runs a YouTube channel you need to go and follow right now. Go subscribe. We'll wait right here while you go and do that. It's The Lore Lodge, and he does an excellent job over there. And when I saw his presentation on Killdozer and Marvin Heemeyer, I said, that's the guy. That's the guy I want to talk to about this and get the full story, because there's so much that needs to be heard. And look, if you've heard the story and you know all the details, that's great. But make sure that those that you know also know that story. And you can start by sharing this conversation with them and looking for Aidan's work over at the Lore Lodge on YouTube. I want to just mention before we get this conversation started, there's so much breaking news today that I plan on covering in the back half of today's show. So I'm going to try to not only leave time for that, but also respect Aidan's time, and we'll see if we can have this conversation in an hour. Huh? Do you think that's possible? Hi, Aidan. How are you, sir?
Hey, how are you? I'm good.
Awesome. Thanks for making time, man. I know you're a very busy guy, and I'm serious. I'm not just blowing smoke, man. Your channel, The Lore Lodge, over on YouTube is absolutely excellent, and I hope that if anybody watching this isn't familiar with it, go subscribe. You won't regret it. So, like I just said in the setup there, I want you to walk us through this story. And I want you to go back to 1992, the way you do in your own presentation over at the Lore Lodge, and just tell us who Marvin Heemeyer was. And he was just, he was a normal guy, right?
Yeah, that's probably one of the most interesting things about this story. And let me know if you can't hear me or anything so I can fix my mic, but
yeah, it's a little bit distant, but I'm trying to manually crank it up here.
Slip it a little closer to my face. That help at all?
Yeah, that's good, man.
Cool.
We're good.
All right.
And the audience,
I'm in the process of moving, so this setup is a little
oh
funky right now.
No, I'm sorry. You should have
No,
told
you're
me
totally
to wait.
Fine. You're totally fine.
No, I get it.
No, I couldn't have waited. I'm going to be gone for the month of June.
Okay, well, good.
So,
I hope
yeah,
you get to
I was
relax
happy
some.
to do this. I
Well,
never
thank
get
you.
to talk about this anymore. It's one of my favorite subjects we've ever covered. And I actually have to give credit to my best friend and my producer, because it was his idea. I was like, I don't know. Is this really a story that fits our channel and our vibe and everything? And in a way, at the time, it didn't. But I think that covering it kind of put us into a different space that I really enjoyed working in. For example, like right before this call, I've been working on the missing scientist conspiracy theory.
Nice.
We did a video on Monica Reza last month, and that was, the start of that. So I've gotten into a really interesting space where I can talk about things that are, I think, very genuinely misunderstood in a lot of ways. And this is one of those stories. It might be the most, the most misunderstood of all of the famous stories that have come out of that 90s and early 2000s period, when you got Ruby Ridge and Waco and Timothy McVeigh. And then out in this little town in Colorado, this outsized event happens. Something that, this is the kind of thing you'd expect to see in maybe New York or LA or somewhere where crazy stuff kind of tends to happen. Granby, Colorado is a place where crazy stuff doesn't happen. It's a place where nothing happens. There's nothing going on there. But Marv Heemeyer, and that's the other thing, Marv didn't live there. Marv wasn't from Granby. Marv lived up in another town that's, the name of it's escaping me, I'll find it. It's Grand Lake, that's where it was. Grand Lake, which is about like 30 to 50 minutes north of Granby. Before that, he grew up in South Dakota. He was born in 1951. He joined the Air Force in 1971. I can't recall off the top of my head what his exact service specialty was, but I believe it did involve mechanics.
Yeah, and I mean, just a normal life.
Yeah.
Like a normal American life, right?
Yeah, and a great American life. This guy joins the Air Force, he serves his country, he gets out, he moves out to Colorado, he starts working in the muffler business, the auto repair business. Starts off, if I remember correctly, in Denver, then moves out to Grand Lake. He wants something quieter. He wants to, live a life that is not all the hustle and bustle of a big city. And he opens up a muffler repair shop. He repairs people's snowmobiles. He actually outfits people's snowmobiles. Some of the people who knew him talk about how the modifications he would make would allow you to just plow through trees that were 4 inches thick, which is probably an exaggeration. But I would assume that there were people who did survive something like that usually you hit a tree on a snowmobile and you're done.
Right.
You're screwed. So he's a very well-liked guy. And there are some things that people don't like about him. He wants to legalize gambling in Grand Lake. He wants...
He's ahead of his time.
He's a very libertarian sort of guy. He
Very
thinks
libertarian.
that, you should be able to do things as long as they're not hurting other people.
And Colorado has those pockets for sure. Maybe not as many as they used to have.
Probably
but
not.
No, but truly, I mean, and I hate to see him painted as someone who was a recluse, who just hated life, hated government, and this was his last hurrah on his way out. No, because you talk about the snowmobile stuff. I mean, he was well liked in town, right? I mean, your documentary does a great job, man. He had a girlfriend. He hung out with fellow snowmobilers out there. I mean, he was part of a club. I mean, this guy was living and I can totally respect trying to find a place where you can just be left alone in the middle of nowhere. And unfortunately, that just was not the case for him.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
And I think that this is something that I'm hoping this story will receive the second look it deserves from a lot of people who... Yeah. There's a lot of us who the first time we heard the story, we heard the version where Marv is the hero. I think that, especially for people who are more in the libertarian space, politically, who are, generally more on the right-wing side of things, I think a lot of us heard growing up and heard as we got older the version where Marv Heemeyer is a hero. And to an extent, I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think that what Marv did was necessarily heroic. I think that describing it that way puts a lot of pressure on people who are trying to explain why it happened and why it was necessary for it to happen. Personally, I think that what he did was justified. I think that it was well-deserved. I might even go so far as describe it as heroic. But I think that we have to be careful in using that term when we talk to other people who aren't quite as initiated on the story about it. Because to a lot of people, what they know is the story of Marv Heemeyer, the guy who, refused to get on the public water system and was pumping sewage into an irrigation ditch and wasn't listening to anybody and was going back on his word and signing contracts he wasn't keeping. The version of the story that Patrick Brower and the rest of the Granby establishment have tried to put out there.
Yeah, and that's a very important point, and I'm glad you brought it up early on in this, because as you point out in your documentary over at the Lore Lodge, is that writer, Patrick Brower, right? That you do an excellent job, because he's the guy who has really written this history for the masses. Yep. He's the guy who has crafted the narrative that he, I guess, prefers for whatever reason. And so much has been lost in that. And I'm telling you, and I hate to sound overly complimentary, but it's true. You do an excellent job of showing, well, why did Brower write it this way back here, and then in his book he wrote it a different way, and that wasn't just one little mistake. That was that was multiple facts of this story that he crafted, that he reported one way here, and then years later wrote it another way. I don't know. Did you ever determine why he painted it differently?
I mean, there's a couple of reasons. I couldn't say for certain, and I also wouldn't want to, so he doesn't sue me.
Yes. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you said that, because I was about to.
I think it could go any number of ways. Part of it could be, he's a little small town journalist, and I joked about this. Like a journalist hates to see a historian coming. Because what we're very accustomed to as historians is you can't trust anybody. Right. Everybody's lying. Even if they're
Everybody's got
not
an agenda.
aware that they're lying, everybody's lying because everybody's coming from a specific paradigm, a specific
Yes.
position. You can read two sides of an account from one war and get completely different stories, not just like biases, totally different stories.
I feel like we may be living that now in
Yes.
multiple places in the world.
It's worse than it's ever been because there's more journalists than there's ever been. There's more people
wow.
recording stuff than there's ever been. So it used to be that you'd have an event happened and 3 or 4 people wrote about it, and then everybody else based what they said on those guys, which let you go through and say, all right, well, this piece of information came from here, and this piece came from here. Here's the contradictions. Here's the things they all agree on. Cool, we have a good sense of what happened.
Yeah.
Now you've got to read the Vox version, the Vice version, the Fox version, the Daily Wire version. Like, there's just so much, and they're all cannibalizing each other, and it's really difficult to dig through. I am not envious of the historians of the world 20, 30, 40 years from now. Because they're going to be really struggling to describe everything that happened in the 2010s and 2020s. But I think that that's kind of, when you look at Patrick Brower, it's an opposite scenario of that. We have one account. We have one guy who was there that wrote about it. We have a couple of other semi-local organizations and papers that covered it as well, but a lot of them then cited him. So, and they kind of go based on his recommendations of like, oh, who should I talk to? Who has the story here? So this entire thing, for the most part, originates from this one guy. And I don't know why he lied. It's very strange. It's a very bizarre thing. I don't think, honestly, that this is a situation where there's any sort of grand conspiracy going on with him lying. I don't think that, the feds were like, hey, we can't have more Killdozers. Get out there and fix this situation. I think that he's a small-town journalist in a place nobody's ever heard of other than through this story. And this was his chance at the big time. This was his chance to get hired as a correspondent by the New York Times or by the the Boston Globe or something like that. So I think over time, because this is the only story he has that has national relevance, he just keeps on. If he doesn't want to leave Granby, he's got to find some way to make Granby get enough attention for him to get a bigger job. Thankfully, that never happened, because I think even probably the bigger papers looking at this story were like, I don't know that you're doing a very good job. And ironically, he did do a good job at first. The articles he wrote at the very beginning are, for the most part, pretty solid. He does talk about the Dochefs, and he does talk about how there does seem to have been a little bit of tension on the Granby Town Council and everything. Where it gets weird is that after 2004, he starts adding things to the story. So the original reporting is decent. It's pretty solid. It's a little bit biased. It does leave some things out. It doesn't do enough to talk about the story of how Marv Heemeyer ended up where he was, and I'll get to that in just a second. But there is this steady set of changes. The story gets more and more outlandish and goes from, well, Marv signed on to join the public sewer system, and then he backed out of it. And he refused to join, and he refused to get an easement, and that's why everybody had the power to badger him and bully him, was like he had signed this contract and now he wasn't holding up his end of the bargain. Well, he wasn't holding up his end of the bargain because it was a trick all along, and I'll explain that in a moment. But at first, that's the story. And then it's, oh, well, he said that God told him to do this. And that's kind of true. He did say that a little bit. He more said, like, the situation I found myself in felt like a message from God. But then the big one is they add this thing about pumping sewage into an irrigation ditch. That is the big change. That is the one that seems to have forever cemented Marv Heemeyer in a lot of people's minds as this lunatic who just didn't want to follow society's rules. Well, that's not in any of the original reporting.
Wow.
There's nothing about that in any of the original reporting. That does not show up anytime between 1992, when this whole thing starts, up through 2004, when the Killdozer happens, and even naming it Killdozer was an attempt to frame Marv as a bad guy. Unfortunately, as often happens, when you give something a fucking sick name, people like it, and people are like, wait, I like the Killdozer guy. So that irrigation ditch story seems to have been the thing that actually worked. Nothing else before that had really gotten into people's heads, I think, that Marvin Heemeyer was the bad guy. So they come up with this irrigation ditch story. I've never seen anybody present the record from the town council of him being fined. I've never seen any communications about it. Stuff that, if it existed, should be very easy to go pull the records for.
Yeah.
And instead, they just keep reiterating, well, Patrick Brower reported it.
Right.
Who cares?
Right. Yeah,
Here's the document.
And that's one of the things that is so unique about the way you present this is, I mean, there's missing time from city council meetings when they're discussing stuff as it pertains to this. But yes, you're right. Yeah, and what was the date on that? It was June, right, of 2004 that this happened?
Yeah, I want to say June 4th, 2004.
Okay. And so, but as you're telling this, I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, that's right. It kind of, he got a negative rap more after the fact as opposed to the immediate, because immediately after it was almost like you said, it was almost like the movie Falling Down, right? It's like, all right, this guy's been pushed to his limit. And hold on, I have to read this quote because, this is the Heemeyer quote. This is the money shot right here. I was always willing to be reasonable until I had to be unreasonable. Sometimes unreasonable men are forced to do unreasonable things. And that kind of was, like you said, that kind of was the way people interpreted this in the immediate aftermath. But you're right. And I didn't even think about the name Killdozer itself when it can be argued the man went out of his way to avoid killing anyone, which he did avoid killing anyone.
That's
so anyway,
the other shocking part is, you know, like, people talk about, oh, well, you know, he targeted the town library where the kids were. What did that have to do with anything? Well, first of all, it wasn't just the town library. The town library was in the basement of the town council building, the municipal building.
Right.
And what he did was he drove up, sat there for a second, then started driving around the building, knocking over, you know, play sets and things like that while everybody else got out. And then once people stopped coming out of the building, that's when he hit it. He did not hit any occupied buildings that did not contain people who had wronged him. And the reason he hit the library was because that's where the municipal stuff happened, and that is what he was trying to punish. It had nothing to do with the fact that there was a library there or even that there were kids there. It was just him trying to let loose this rage. People talk about, oh, well, he attacked the field of all of those natural gas things, the natural gas containers, the propane tanks. He wasn't using incendiary ammunition. Do you know how unlikely it is that you're going to manage to ignite a propane tank with a rifle shot without incendiary ammunition? The chances are incredibly low. So there's all these different aspects that go into it.
Also, the widow's house that he went to, she had over an hour head start, as you point out in the documentary, and didn't he drive around the block or something? And I don't know.
Took the long way around town to get there. You know, you can tell that his goal was not to kill anybody. It was to scare people. It was to make people feel fear and to feel the kind of oppression that he had been feeling. And I think when we look around at what's going on right now in a lot of places with these data centers, I'm hoping that these will get people a second look at Marv's story. I'm also hoping that people will potentially take some inspiration from a man. I'm not going to say which man. I'm just saying, you know, maybe take some inspiration from a guy who did a thing once. You know?
So let's go back, because I kind of led you down the path a little ahead of where we maybe should start. So he moves to the area.
Yes.
You talked about he starts the muffler shop, and is that when the sewer dispute begins? Like, there's an easement issue, right?
Yeah. So that's so convoluted. It is the most insanely convoluted series of events.
Honestly, and again, the way you're able to take this convoluted, you know, city council business, this permit business, and condense it into this very digestible over at the Lore Lodge documentary, it's well done. So yes, I guess kind of explain the whole easement sewer mess there.
Sure. So I was able to find my notes for this, which is very nice. So this is back in 2004. Marv is sitting there and recording his thoughts, and what he says is that all of the trouble started with a friend of his, an acquaintance really, by the name of John Kleiner. And so after Marv moves to Grand Lake, John comes to him and he says, "Hey man, I really want to open a garage somewhere in this area. Can you help me out? And Marv's like, yeah, sure. Because according to everybody, and these are articles coming out like June 10th, 2004, right in the aftermath, they're like, Marv would give you the shirt off of his back. Marv was a great customer. Marv was the kind of guy who would do anything for anybody if he had the capability at a moment's notice, you know? So Marv's a good dude, and he says, yeah, sure, John, I'll help you out. I found this property at 723 County Road 612 in Granby. It's a 3,000 square foot warehouse, big bay doors. It's exactly what you want if you're opening a garage, right? And that's another part of this story that I think people kind of forget about is Marv didn't buy this property for himself. Initially, he bought the property for John Kleiner. And the property was only available because back in the late 80s, it fell into the hands of the Resolution Trust Corporation after the savings and loan crisis. So Cody Dochev, the previous owner, he takes out some bad loans. He's not able to pay them off. The bonds market collapses, and then he ends up losing the property. And he's very upset about this. But eventually, this happens in the late 80s, in the early 90s, he is prepared. He's gotten together the funding from some friends to buy back his property. And this property is the same one. It is this 3,000 square foot warehouse, these bay doors, and he's got, I think, like $50,000. No, he's got, I think, a $50,000 out. That's the max he's willing to pay. That's the max he has funding for. And over Heemeyer, he's got $66,000. That's the most he's willing to spend.
Right.
So they go to the auction. Marv's buying this property on behalf of John Kleiner, Cody Dochev, and one of his buddies is buying it on behalf of him. So the first bid that goes up is $35,000. That's Cody Dochev's bid. Then Marv goes a little higher. He goes up to $40,000. Dochev goes to $45,000. Marv goes to $50,000, and that's it. No counterbid. And then, according to Marv, after this all goes down, Dochev came to him and, said that basically he was supposed to be the one buying the property. Who's this outsider who's coming in? This guy's not from Granby. He doesn't belong here. What are you doing buying up my property? And Marv, according to him, Cody's version of events is a little different, but Marv basically says, I offered it to him for $66,000. That was the price. Basically, that was the deal. John Kleiner said, I'll pay up to $66,000. You can keep the rest. And so in order for this to be Marv to earn a profit, he's got to sell this thing for $66,000. Cody Dochev comes to him and says, I'll give you $50,000 for it. Marv says, if I take $50,000, I'm giving up $16,000. Like, can't you meet me halfway? Can we make a deal here? And Cody Dochev just keeps saying no. Marv gets the property. Marv sets up shop. And by the way, none of this stuff about the savings and loan crisis and Dochev and all that, a little bit of it's brought up in Tread, Patrick Brower's documentary, but most of it is not. How he actually lost the property and how he planned to buy the property back is not really well covered in Brower's work. Dochev, of course, says that he didn't even meet Marv Heemeyer. He doesn't, he never talked to the man. I don't believe him.
Right.
So
for the record, as you're telling this story, I'm going to try to keep, and I won't be able to keep an accurate count. I'm going to try to keep an accurate count of how many times Marv is trying to be reasonable. Mm-hmm. He's trying to find a solution that should be accepted in a normal town, right?
Yeah. And I did put it in here in my notes that Marv actually got the numbers wrong in the end. It wasn't $50,000 that it went for; it was $42,000. But that just tells you that Dochev was even more cheap. He's not willing to bid. He's not even willing to get up to $45,000. He's right. Tapping out at $42,000. Dude, I just put more money down on a house last week. And I'm 28.
Yeah. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. That's awesome. Granted, this is 30 years ago, but
right.
It's a different world. But if you're trying to buy back your business that you lost, it's got to be worth something to you, right?
Right, man.
But there are some other things. Part of the reason that Dochev thought the property was going to go so cheap is that it had an EPA audit in place. There were going to be hoops you'd have to jump through in order to get it. Hoops that Cody figured nobody else was going to be willing to jump through if he got up to a certain price point, and Marv just is cool with it. But who's not cool with it? John Kleiner. John Kleiner doesn't want to deal with the EPA audit. So John, after Marv has bought the property, John says, I don't really want it anymore. Mm-hmm. So sorry about that, but Marv's still on the hook, so Marv has to buy it. So Marv is buying a property he never wanted in the first place. The guy who used to own the property is trying to buy it back from him, but refuses to pay him what the property is worth, even to him. And now he's got to pay money to clean this up. So he's already in for more than... He didn't intend to be in for anything. Right. Now he's in for, 80 to 100 grand on a property he never wanted. And nobody will buy it from him.
See, I think at this point, me, speaking for myself, I'm already starting to think about building a certain something in my garage.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm already pissed for him, man. Oh.
Yep. So he doesn't want this property, but he says, you know what? I'm going to make the best of it. I will run a muffler shop here. It's what I do. At the very least, I can make some money, and then maybe down the line, I can sell it for a profit. And that's his plan. But that is literally within weeks. Within a couple of months, the town starts organizing against him. And that begins with a man named Bud Wilson, who is the superintendent for the Water and Sanitation Department. So previously, when Dochev owned the property, he put a septic tank in it. The septic tank was kind of ad hoc. It was an old decommissioned cement mixer tank. But he got the waiver for it. He got Granby to say that's fine. So there's a record somewhere from probably the 70s or 80s of the city council of Granby signing away saying, Cody Dochev, you're allowed to build this septic tank out of a cement mixer. That's legal here. And then when the city switches over to public sewer, that septic tank is grandfathered in. So Marv's good to go.
Yeah.
They don't make that septic tank illegal. They do not provide any sort of funding for remediation. They just say, yeah, you can keep it. That's fine. But what they do is they come to Marv. Bud Wilson comes to Marv and he says, hey, do you want to hook your property up to the sewer system? That way you don't have to worry about the septic. You don't have to deal with any of that. It's just, it'll flush out to the sewer. You don't have to pay for anybody to come and empty the tank. You don't have to pay for anybody to come and clean the tank. You don't have to pay to maintain the tank. Just hook up to the sewer, and life gets easier, right? And all it's going to take is a small fee for the hookup. And so Marv signs the paperwork. Wilson does the paperwork. Right. Marv goes to the meeting. And he's basically told he's going to go to the meeting, he's going to sign the paperwork, he's going to pay a small fee, and that's it. He's good. But that's not quite true, and Bud Wilson knew this. Bud Wilson knew that nowhere on Marv's property did it have a direct connection to the town sewer line. He knew that there were two spots, one of which he could have gone under a public road and north about, I want to say, a half mile to a road north of his property, where he would have to pay $80,000. Keep in mind, that's more than he paid for the property, and it's a property he didn't want in the first place. He's going to have to pay $80,000 to connect it that way, or he has to get a maintenance easement from a guy named Gus Harris. Now, who is Gus Harris? He's the guy that was helping Cody Dochev buy the property. And so this is the only way for Marv to get it for the cheapest possible rate, which is still going to be thousands of dollars, by the way.
This is already feeling like a deep conspiracy against the new guy.
It is a conspiracy. Like, it's 100% this town, these buddies on the council, these landowners who didn't want this new guy coming in. Exactly. They got together, and I'm witnessing this right now with the data centers. I live in southeastern Pennsylvania. They are trying to put 3 of them within 2 miles of each other. And I've been to these meetings. I'm going to these meetings. I'm filming them. I am speaking. I'm getting kicked out of them sometimes. So I have a very... What?
Hang on. Hold on. Okay. I guess this sucks, man, because your water bill, your electricity bill, and God knows what else is going to happen. So I'm with you 100%.
We've already got the radioactive coal ash.
Okay. So here's my question. The house. Have you signed the paper? The money's already...
the house, where the house is not... It's not in a great... it's not in a bad spot.
Okay.
And we don't think these data centers are going to go in either. We're fighting tooth and nail against it.
Okay.
But it's really given me a sense of how deep this runs, and how I don't... bulletproof these small town government officials feel that they are.
Yep.
Because they are literally standing there or sitting there in rooms filled with their neighbors who are all telling them, no, we don't want this. And they're just doing it anyway because they know nobody can stop them, and they feel like, it'll all blow over eventually once it's in and nobody can do anything about it. What's it going to matter? And they're all probably on the take. We know that. But so I'm seeing firsthand what Marv was dealing with. Like, I get it now in a way I always understood. I always could empathize, but now I get it. I can sympathize. Now I can empathize.
Sure.
And I'm impressed that Marv didn't get kicked out of any of these meetings. I got kicked out of the first one I went to because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Because I called the chair of the board a spineless, pathetic coward. And he was like, "Yeah, cops." Did a very like snappy little hand gesture at me. But yeah, so I'm.
So you live in one of those towns too.
Yeah, this man has Marv has so much self-control because he goes through this for 12 years. This begins in 1992 that they come to him and they say, hey, we're going to put you on the public sewer. It's just going to be a small fee. And then he finds out that, well, the one guy who could give him an easement refuses to, because if he gives him the easement, then he has no reason to sell the property. And he realizes that this was all something that the board concocted, because they knew they were going to put him in a position, once he signed that paperwork, they knew they were going to put him in a position where he had to either pay $80,000, more than the property's value, to connect to that sewer line, or he was going to have to get an easement, and that guy wasn't giving him the easement. And this was coordinated. No statements of fact here. This is my opinion. I believe that the coordinated thing they did here was Cody Dochev is friends with all these people on the city board. He's friends with the guy who owns the property next to Marv. And so they all make a deal that they are going to put Marv in a position where he has to either pay more than the property's worth to put in the sewer line, or he's going to have to sell it for whatever people are willing to pay him. And then Marv does something rather unexpected, which is that he doesn't do that. He doesn't pay the $80,000. He doesn't get the easement. He says, you know what? Instead, I'm just gonna not. I'm just gonna continue as I was doing.
Leave me alone.
My septic tank's grandfathered in. I'm good. You guys can't do anything to me. And we know they couldn't do anything to him because they didn't.
Right.
Because they couldn't fine him. They couldn't remove him from the property. They spent a decade just constantly trying to do stuff to him. And it never sticks. It never works. Eventually Harris says that he'll sell the acres, but Marv doesn't have the $17,500 that Harris wants for the 2 acres of, bullshit land. Like, this isn't good for anything. This isn't going to do anything for Marv. He doesn't need that land. That's not going to do anything, told him. But, Marv eventually, he's kind of tired of dealing with it. He's tired of city council meetings. He doesn't want to hire a lawyer. And he says, all right, I'll go back to Harris. And you know what? I'll see if the offer's still on the table. And what does Harris do? He does exactly what Dochev and Brower later accused Marv of doing. He says, oh, well, now the price is $20,000. This property appreciated? You're telling me this property appreciated by more than 10% in 1 year?
It's just...
No, it didn't. So, Marv, still trying to play peacemaker here, says he'll do it anyway. He says he'll buy the land. $20,000, all right. You got it, I'll do it, let's just get this thing done. And then Harris keeps he starts putting off signing the documents. He says, I'm busy. No, come by next week and I'll do it. Oh, I'm sorry, I just haven't gotten around to it.
Ghosted him.
And this is kind of the point at which Marv really before this, he's just trying to figure out a way to get this all to work, and to maybe, get the property cleaned up, and so he can sell it at the proper value for it and everything. And this is the point, in 1993, where he really opens up the muffler shop. And this is going to be where he makes his money. And that's when the town just goes into overdrive. They start causing trouble with his with the road leading up to his business. They start causing trouble with his ability to get licenses. They just do everything they possibly can. But the thing is, everybody loves him. Everybody who brings their stuff to him loves him. Mm-hmm. And so the council can't run him out of town because he's making too much money. Like, we have Casey Farrell, the owner of Gamble's Appliances and a member of the Granby Town Board from 97 to 99, used to go to Marv. Like, this is a member of the town board. Goes to Marv for his repairs and his welds. He talks about there's one instance where a box on a delivery truck kept bouncing, so he took it to Marv, and then he fixed it like it was nothing. We've got some people saying Marv can switch a muffler out in 20 minutes. We have the county undersheriff saying he was the best welder around. So Dochev and his people are in a bit of a pickle here. They can't... Marv's making too much money. Everybody loves Marv. There's not really anything they can do, and they have no legal case against him because he's grandfathered in. So they try to just keep on putting the thumb screws on, and eventually they get to a point where, and this is why I keep saying, like, they couldn't actually do anything to him. He wasn't actually breaking any laws, because if he was, they would have fined him. They would have arrested him. They would have, made it so he couldn't get certifications he needed. They would have made it so he couldn't get licenses. They explored these options, but none of it worked because they didn't actually have a case against the man.
Which makes the dumping of waste.
And that's the thing. Nowhere is that mentioned.
Right, that story.
Nobody says anything about that in the 90s.
Until he's, right.
Nobody says anything about that in the early 2000s. That doesn't show up until like 07.
Right.
When Brower starts writing his book and he needs a story that's not going to make him look like he's on the side of the bad guys. Right. So eventually in 97, this is, again, 5 years of this. 5 years of them trying to find every possible way to get rid of Marv and realizing they can't do it. Dochev finally submits and he goes, all right, I'll go buy the property from you. And Cody has already bought the 2 acres from Gus Harris, most likely for a lot less money. And those 2 acres, if I'm remembering correctly, actually had previously belonged to him, and Harris had bought them from the trust. So this was probably the idea was like, all right, well, Marv, buys the 2 acres from me and we'll split the money or something like that. But Cody comes to him, he says, all right, I want to buy the property. And Marv brings an appraiser down from Grand Lake. He wants an outside appraiser.
Yeah.
He doesn't want somebody from the town bank.
He knows the game now.
Yep. And so that appraiser comes down and he says, I'm going to value this at $270,000, which is a lot more than Marv paid for it. That's plenty for Marv to get out of there. But he's making a profit now. This thing's bringing in good money for him. And if he closes up the muffler shop, if he takes the money and leaves, he's still got to find another job. He wasn't in the military for 20 years. Like, he's not getting a pension. Right. I don't think. Maybe he was in the military for 20 years. I don't know. I never looked into that part of it. But point is...
That's fine.
Yeah, point is, Cody comes in. He says, I want to buy it. Marv has it appraised. Appraiser says $270,000. Marv comes back to Cody and says, it appraised at $270,000. I'll give it to you for an even $250,000. So that's Marv giving a guy a deal. A guy who didn't deserve it.
I feel like I've missed a couple of these
Probably.
reasonable off-ramps here.
Yeah, a guy who didn't deserve it. Cody Dochev's an asshole. He spent the last 5 years trying to con Marv out of this property by making it more and more expensive for him to possess it.
Right. You know what? Hold
and
on.
Marv still cuts him a deal. Marv's you know what? I want out of this. There. I will give you a deal. I will give you $20,000 off. We'll call it an even $250,000. I'm doing you a favor. And so he gives him a signed copy of the appraisal and a signed copy of what he wants, and waits for Cody to come back with an offer. And Cody doesn't come back with an offer. Cody never actually shows up with it. And in my notes I have, and here we encounter another place where the version of events given by Brower and the others in Tread diverges from that given by Heemeyer, because according to Dick Brody, who was a Granby Town Board member from 1995 to 2001, Cody agreed to pay that $250,000 only for Marv to immediately raise the price. Interesting. So Marv's telling us appraiser said $270,000, he offered $250,000, Cody backs out. Dick Brody is saying Cody agreed to pay $250,000 and then Marv upped it to $375,000. Those are mutually exclusive. Those can't both be true. And then Dick also says that Cody agreed to pay that higher number, at which point Marv backed out. So what we're seeing here is they have taken what they did to Marv and turned it around and said Marv did it to them. And then That would be, okay, well, that's he said, she said. We've got two different witnesses, two different opinions, and I mean, Marv's a little crazy, so who can we really trust here? Well, Patrick Brower in 2004 says things that are different from Patrick Brower in 2019. Because according to him, the price change occurred only after the Dochefs had asked the town to approve their concrete plant 2 years later. So Heemeyer's tapes agree with this. They say that it was, Dick says it's immediately, but both Brower and Heemeyer say it was 2 years later that Cody walked away, and then 2 years later approached him about buying it again, and then Marv had it reappraised, because what Dochef had done was, basically having the sale agreement in place, as it turns out. I'll let people watch the full video for the detailed version of this, but the sale agreement they had in place was going to be $250. And Dochef's plan was to get that sale in place, purchase the property, or at least have the offer ready, and then go ahead and have his buddies on the council rezone it, which is, again, exactly what's happening with a lot of these data centers. So they go to rezone and change this. I think it was from commercial to light industrial or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or it was some kind of flex. But, there's and Brower says that this is a handshake agreement, by the way. But that's not the only difference. We also have that it was Joe Dochef, according to Brower's 2004 reporting, who approached Marv to negotiate the purchase. So there's a whole bunch of different things going on here.
Right.
Cody's real name is Metro, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah.
How's that happen?
I did a whole bunch of digging. I found out that Joe Dochef is a son.
Uh-huh. No. This is important, because in the video, you go through this painstaking process.
Yeah.
I'm talking about what you experienced was so painstaking. Like, you tried to make sure you had everybody identified properly, and it's like, can families not come up with different names for their kids? I mean, come on now.
As it turns out, there are two grandsons named Joe.
That's not cool.
So I'm like desperately trying to figure out how to get through to here, and I eventually realized I'm like, okay, it doesn't really matter. Like, I want to know, I want to have my details right, but it doesn't matter who this was.
Right? No, you're like me, man. If I'm chasing a fact, I don't care how minuscule and how unimportant to the story it is. Yeah. I need to know, or I won't sleep tonight.
That's my biggest problem. Is I do this a lot, and then I end up spending a lot more time on each of these stories than I probably have to. But at least I know I'm right. But yeah, what we eventually get down to here when we look through all of the different reporting is we get that the majority of the people involved agree that the way this went down is Cody Dochef said, I want to buy the property. Marv said, I'll give it to you for $250. Cody said, okay. Cody then goes to the board and says, I want to rezone the area. And then he goes back to Marv and says, okay, I'm ready to buy it now at that $250 number you gave me. And Marv goes, well, now it's being rezoned. Now it's worth a different amount of money. I'm going to call out another appraiser. That appraiser comes down and tells him $375. So Cody screws himself. Cody screws himself here. He could have bought the property and then had it rezoned after he'd already bought it. But, for some reason, he doesn't go that route. Because what happened here is that after Marv initially agreed to take the $250,000, the Dochefs did not draft up a contract. They did not begin formalizing the sale. Instead, they went and asked the town for permission to build an indoor concrete plant. And nobody was happy about that, by the way. This was surrounded by residential zoning.
Right.
You can't build a concrete plant in the middle of a town. You got to build that outside of town. So, yeah, it was neither Marv's property nor the 2 acres that were purchased from Harris were zoned for industry. And this, by the way, is, this is coming from Brower's 2004 reporting. His article frames this as something that's akin to a simple request for a permit, but that's not the case. This is Brower being dishonest again. This isn't rezoning. This is conditional use hearings. This is, this goes beyond just, hey, I need a permit for my business. Hey, I need a license. This is a significant process that should require EPA studies. It should require permission from the state government. Things that, like, if you're going to build something this big in this small of a place, surrounded by people, you've got to do remediation. You've got to do all sorts of things, and he's trying to bypass this entire process. And Brower just doesn't really bring that up. Rather than forcing him, to quote myself here, rather than forcing Dochev to go through the proper channels or find a properly zoned location for this plant, Granby allowed him to file a permit for a Planned Development Overlay District, or a PDO, which gave him special treatment, because that's not how zoning is supposed to work. But even according to Dochev, again, this is Brower's reporting in 2004. Tread says different things in 2019. According to Brower's reporting at the time all of this is happening, that's when the Dochefs went back to Marv to ask him for the $250,000 deal. Not immediately. He didn't immediately raise the price. Dick Brody lied. It's just straight up. He lied, in my opinion. So that's when the property value gets raised to $375. Heemeyer says that he only raised the price once in 1999 in the lead up to the rezoning hearings. But yeah, so they also tried to buy the 22-acre subdivision just west of their land and of Mountain View Muffler. And that's when they claim they went back to Marv with a new offer in which they would trade him 2 acres of the subdivision in exchange for his plot. A subdivision that didn't have his buildings, that didn't have the same things he needed, that, like, he'd have to build a whole new warehouse. But he goes for it. He says, yeah, I'll do it. I'll take your 2 acres. You need that land, you know what, fine. You can have it. Just all I need you to do is I need you to build me a new garage. You can have my land. Just build me a garage. Because otherwise I won't have one. And you're not paying me for the land. You're trading me. Mm-hmm. And it would have been a better spot for Marv, to be fair. It wouldn't be along a highway. It wouldn't be up a weird little service road. So Marv is receptive, and he says he'll take it. But the Dochefs refuse.
He's trying, man. Marv's trying. He's trying everything.
Joe Dochev even tells Patrick Brower to give him that land with a huge building. It would have cost near $1 million. It didn't make sense. And it's like, yeah, Joe, it doesn't make sense. What you're asking for doesn't make sense, man. You're aware that it doesn't make sense, and you're still asking. What are you doing? And it also bothered them that Marv wanted a contract. That Marv didn't want to just do a handshake agreement. He wants
he's learned.
guarantees.
He's learned.
Yep.
Handshakes will get you burned. Yes.
Yep. But the way it's framed in this article, Marv comes across as being unreasonable and greedy, and then when you actually break it down, when you look at all of the functional details, that's not at all what happened. He was trying to be reasonable at every turn, and that's why this quote, an unreasonable man, or a reasonable man has to do something unreasonable. He is reasonable. He is demonstrably a reasonable person. He's a popular person. He's somebody that people in his hometown like. He's somebody who has gone out of his way to do nice things for other people, even people who have shafted him. He's offered to take $20,000 off this property to sell it to Cody Dochev just to get it done, and Dochev is like, no, I'm going to look for every other possible way to get this thing for as cheap as I possibly can.
I tell you. Seriously.
Yeah, and let's break this down. I mean, the Dochefs want to buy the land at first for the current zoning. It gets appraised, and they refuse to buy it because they want to go get it rezoned, and they want to make sure that they can buy it for less than it's zoned for. I don't know why they didn't consider just going and doing the zoning thing afterwards. Like that,
especially because really, they got buddies on the city council.
Exactly, it would have gone through. It all would have been fine. So the zoning thing comes up. Marv does what you would expect somebody to do, which is he has it reappraised and then, offers the money. It's the entire, and then he agrees to the trade as long as they'll just build him a building. Which, by the way, no, that would not have cost $1 million. It was a warehouse. It would have been 100,000, 200,000 max. Especially because he could just take all of his existing equipment and move it. He just needed the new building. And warehouses are not particularly expensive builds. They don't need as much as a domestic residence does. They don't need the same kind of insulation and wiring and everything. They don't need the same plumbing. It's basically just a shell that you pop down, you put some insulation and some electrical in it, and boom, you're good to go. This would be a cheap build. This would be something they could have done for very little money. But instead, they decide to try and trick the man yet again. So, trying to move down here a little bit.
Yeah, where are we now on the?
Trying to figure that out exactly where we're at.
I'm trying to think of where we're at in the years because we're getting close to him losing his mind.
This is so this is like 99 to 2001 that all of this is happening. Right. Because Cody Metro comes to him in 1997 to buy the property. He doesn't ever actually formalize the offer, and then he comes back 2 years later trying to buy it at the same price. Keep in mind, if they did the same thing that they had done to him, the price would have gone up by $25,000.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, that's not what he asked for. They waited until he got it reappraised, and they're like, okay, so that's $19.99. So what we end up with is by the year 2000, looks like Marv's there to stay because nobody wants to buy the property for any sort of reasonable price, and now they're trying to rezone it without the owner's permission. Now, typically when you rezone something, it's the owner asking to rezone it, or it's the community asking to rezone it, or it's a group of investors asking to rezone it with the permission of the property owner. But they don't have Marv's permission. Marv doesn't want this to happen, so he's got to fight them rezoning his land. Because if they do, it's going to cause problems for him. It's going to increase his property taxes, for one.
Right.
It is potentially going to change what he's allowed to do there. And it will almost put him in a position that forces him to sell for less than his property is actually worth, which is always the plan here. They are constantly looking for a way, how do we underpay Marv? How do we get this for as little as possible? And at a certain point, you realize that this is no longer an issue of just two different business owners kind of sparring for the best position in the deal. Mm-hmm. Because as time goes on, the price keeps getting more and more inflated. And at any point, they could have just gone back. Like, if they just looked back at their own behavior, they could have had it for $80,000. They could have had it for $66,000 at one point. Then they could have had it for $80,000. Then they could have had it for $250,000. Then they could have had it for $375,000. Every single time Marv comes to them with a price, they say no, and then inevitably, because of the way economics works, the price keeps going up. I mean, this is just basic supply and demand, basic inflation, the simple stuff that you should know coming out of grade school about how the economy functions, and they keep screwing it up.
Right. And it's not just Heemeyer versus whoever wants the property. It's Heemeyer against the world, quite frankly. It's the city council, like you said. He has to go to court as well, where it doesn't work out for him. I mean, it's just one thing after another, and all of the remedies that our system of government provides for us, they are all conspired against him, man.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing too is, the way this gets portrayed is that the entire town of Granby was in agreement about how this should go, and it was just Marv. Marv was the one fighting it. No, he wasn't. Marv was the leader of a group of residents who all agreed they didn't want a concrete plant down the street. Because of, again, the things he cited were the noise, the dust, the traffic, and the effects on air and water quality, which all sounds so very familiar right now. Yeah, so these are things that affect everybody. It's not just Marv. They're doing something that's going to have negative effects for everyone, and some people agree that Marv's criticisms were helpful. They sort of, made it look like, okay, where can we make adjustments to this plan in order to make it acceptable to people? And eventually it gets to the point where it's looking like this is going to go through. But then Marv hires a lawyer, and when he brings in his lawyer, the board kicks everybody out of the meeting to hold an executive session. This is very similar to what happened to me in April with this local data center. People showed up with legal documents, and the supervisors said, we're going to take a recess. This is a 3-hour meeting. They recessed for an hour. This is a meeting where people are supposed to be able to voice their concerns. And so they cut everybody off. They cut an hour out of the time. And then rushed people along, and then broke their own rules and actually violated the law in several places. I think all of these people are going to end up being sued down the line, whether this goes through or not, but, that is what it is. But, Marv, he tells the story of how the lawyer went down, and what happens is that as the town planning commission and board of trustees moved the Docheff's request along, the town board discovered it had made a mistake in the approval process, which, as I say in the video, is small town government code for we were trying to do something shady and we got caught doing it. So that's why they have to go into the executive session, is that they can openly discuss the way they're trying to circumvent city laws without everybody hearing it happen. And the lawyer for Heemeyer says it's open and shut, which results in a delay in the approval process. But that doesn't stop the Docheffs. They keep preparing for building something on Marv's land that Marv still owns. So At the end of the year 2000, Marv launches a lawsuit. In January of 2001, the preliminary plans for the plant are approved, and then the rezoning is finalized a few months later. Keep in mind, Marv still owns the property. Marv has not agreed to sell the property. They just are doing all of this against the property owner's will, and generally against the will of the people who live in the area. But so, Marv keeps fighting, though. He's lost that fight, but maybe he can take it elsewhere. And then we get that in June of 2001, the Dochefs claim that they offered to give Marv the easement if he would drop this lawsuit against them. So basically, the Dochefs are now like, wait, we're not gonna, we've rezoned the area, but we still can't kick him off the land, and now the land is absolutely going to be more expensive. So all right, we'll give you the easement, just drop the lawsuit against us. And this is where I think Marv makes potentially a mistake. Because, on the one hand, Marv may have been correct in assuming the Dochefs never actually planned to give him the easement, and that they just wanted him to withdraw the lawsuit, and then they were going to say, sorry, we changed our minds, and now he's got to start the whole process again. And maybe then he'll be willing to take a better deal. It could also be that the Dochefs really were done, and they really were okay with this, and that had Marv said, yeah, you know what, I'll take the easement, let's call it a day, that it would have been over. It's hard to say. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say if Marv made the right decision there. There may have been avenues. There may have been contracts that could have been drawn up. Things put in place that would ensure that this deal went through as planned. But who knows? Unfortunately, that's something that we're never going to have the answer to because it'll never happen. Right. Personally, I think that from the outside, I think the right choice would have been to go to your lawyer and say, hey, how can we make sure that this goes through in the way it's supposed to go through, that it's legally bulletproof, that we're not going to end up in a courtroom again in a year. But I can also understand it is 2001. Marv bought this property in 1991. It has been a decade of people trying to screw him over. He has every single interaction with the Dochefs has been negative. They have always screwed him. They have always gone back on their word every single time. I can't blame the guy for assuming that's what they were going to do again. I can't blame him for hanging up the phone. Now, of course, in Tread, this is presented, and even in the articles by Dochef from the 2000s, it's presented as a reasonable compromise that the Dochefs offered. How could Marv turn this down? Well, like I just explained, they'd been screwing him for 10 years. How could he trust that it was actually going to go through? It looks reasonable. It does. But was it? Was it really? Also, Marv says that he was stonewalled from connecting to the public sewer. He says he wanted to do it the whole time and just nobody would let him. But, there's the $80,000. But I got to a point where I said, they only gave him that option of paying $80,000 to connect to the nearest access point. And that made me wonder what was being left out of the story. And this is the point at which Marv, who is curious about why they're not offering him any other route to fix this situation, is when he requests the meeting minutes from the 1992 Sanitation Board hearing, where he's denied access to the system. Because at first he wanted access to the system, and they wouldn't give it, and he couldn't get it, and he wasn't willing to pay for it. And then he went back and he said, "Fine, I'll pay for it," and then they wouldn't let him do it because they wanted so much money. And he says that when he read through these mentions, there was no mention of his needing, when he read through these documents, there was no mention of him needing a maintenance easement. They spent 15 minutes talking about this and never mentioned that he needed a maintenance easement.
That's right. Yes, I remember that now.
Yeah, so basically his argument was, hey, the town lied to me about how to do this. They're now trying to hold it over my head that I signed some paperwork saying I'd do it. But they lied, therefore the paperwork's invalid, and they don't even have the meeting minutes where I was told, where they're claiming that they told me that all of this was going to be necessary and that I needed a maintenance easement. Where's the meeting minutes?
Dirty, man.
And so, yeah, Marv, he keeps fighting, but in 2002, he loses his lawsuit. The Dochefs now refuse to give him the easement. He can't connect to the sewer system without shelling out tens of thousands of dollars. And at this point, the town starts fining him. Because that's what happens in the 2000s, is they basically come back and they say, well, you did agree to join the sewer system, so every day you don't, you're getting a fine. And And that is when Marv buys a Komatsu D355A that he got at auction. And this is the point in the story where you can kind of ask yourself, did Marv know what he was going to do when he bought that bulldozer? He buys the bulldozer in I think, like, April, right after he loses the lawsuit, like April or May. And then in October of 2002, he puts everything up for auction. The property, the building, the bulldozer, all of his equipment. He's like, you know what? I'm out. I'm out of this. I'm going to take my money, and I'm going to go back to Grand Lake. I'm going to retire. I'm going to live out the rest of my days snowmobiling and gambling and doing the things I love.
So that's interesting, though, because you said that he loses the court case. Mm-hmm. He wins the bulldozer at auction, mm-hmm. and it's reasonable to think, oh, this is where he's starting to concoct a plan. But then he puts everything on auction, including that bulldozer. Mm-hmm. So it makes you wonder that if he did have a plan, maybe he said, you know what, that's silly. Come on, come to your mm-hmm. senses there, Marv. But all but 2 items get auctioned off, correct?
Yep, and they are the building, or the building and the land, and the bulldozer. The only things nobody buys.
And what does Marv think about that?
According to his own tapes on everything, he took that as a sign from God.
Right. And then there was
that was, Jesus is telling me, you know what, I still have these 2 things. I should do something with them.
Right, and I thought it was fascinating how you mentioned in your documentary over at the Lore Lodge that explained the diameter there, the width of the entrance into the garage, and how it was such a snug fit.
I'm trying to. I
think it was 2 inches on each side.
Yeah, it was like the exact perfect width for him to fit that thing in and out.
Which was another sign from God, right?
Yeah, you can understand a man who has been pushed to his breaking point for, by this point, 11 years. You can understand how he would take this as some sort of sign from the Almighty that he was supposed to do something. So he does the thing. He puts 1/2-inch thick steel plates. He puts 3-inch thick bulletproof plastic shields around the cameras. He puts a 50 cal through a hole in the back. He puts some FAL rifles pointing out the side, which, by the way, like, what a pull. A couple of FALs. Those are great guns.
I'm trying to find, I think I closed the tab, which is something I do often on this show, that showed somebody sitting in there that was looking at the, that you could see all the setup inside, because it's rare to find pictures from the apparatus that were attached to the gizmo there. I just called Killdozer a gizmo. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it works. It works, right?
I gotta find this picture to share. You keep going.
Also, I love that one of the guys involved in this story is the guy who buys the property from Marv eventually in October of 2003. So a year after he puts everything up for auction, he actually does end up selling the property, and I think he sells it for less, because at this point it's not about the money; it's about just having the money to finish his bulldozer. He doesn't need retirement money. He just needs to finish his bulldozer.
Yeah.
He sells it to a trash company owned by a guy named Travis Bussey, which is incredible. Might be Buse or Bus, but I think Bussey's funnier. And this requires an insurance walkthrough, right? And so Martin is pretty sure he's about to get caught.
Right.
He just covers the bulldozer in a tarp. And then tells the insurance guy that it's just an unfinished project he's working on, because he's leasing out the building he just sold to finish this. He tells the insurance guy, don't worry about that. It's just a little thing I'm working on.
And don't ask me any questions.
Yeah, the insurance inspector's like, all right. Which, to be fair, in what world are you going to guess that that's what's inside, that's what's under the tarp?
All right, yeah,
this has never happened before.
Yeah. No, you're right.
I mean, we did do it in Desert Storm a little bit, but not to local buildings. So, for the rest of 2003 into 2004, Marv kind of just disappears from the world. He breaks up with his girlfriend. He transitions all of his assets into the names of his relatives. And he just seems to have committed himself to, this is how it's going to end. Time to do it. This is my calling. This is my job. And he finishes up the bulldozer. He makes sure that all of his inheritance money from his father, who passed away in March of 2004, goes to his sister and his brothers. And there are some people who have suggested that the death of his father might have been the breaking point. But based on when he started building the bulldozer, probably not. So what I think is really interesting about this too is that all of this money getting transitioned out, that's also premeditation, because that has a very specific secondary effect. Marv had not yet committed a crime when he transferred his assets to his family, which meant that those assets legally belonged to them and could not be touched.
Yeah.
It would kind of be like if he slapped Killdozer LLC on the side of his truck and on the side of the bulldozer and then rammed it in and stuff. It's like, can we sue him or can we sue Killdozer?
Right.
In this case, though, he went a step further. He just transitioned it all to family.
That's wise.
So he's got about $1 million net worth. And as a result of that decision, if Cody Dochev, if Patrick Brower, if any of the guys on the town council, any of them went to the courts and said, hey, Marv caused this damage to our property, we want money from his estate. Well, he had no estate. Everything he owned was now in the possession of his siblings. So he made sure before... this is how you know this guy was so smart.
Yeah.
He was also almost certainly autistic. But this is how you know this guy is so intelligent.
Yeah.
And that he really was set on this course, that he really felt that he had this righteous, justified vengeance coming, is that he had the premeditation, he had the foresight to make sure that he found the one loophole that would make it abundantly clear that nobody he attacked could profit from his death.
That is very wise. Very
It's
wise. By the way,
so smart.
I just want to thank Tyler. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of
hey,
you
Tyler.
with the donation there. Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah, I see a lot of your of your fans and your inside jokes over here. I love that. That is so cool.
I told him in our Discord, and I shared it to our YouTube page.
Thank you. Y'all are welcome to
talking about this.
Thank you. Y'all are welcome to hang out here 3 o'clock Eastern every day. So just anyway,
if you guys
that's
need
awesome
something to do.
Please come over.
You need something to listen to.
Sure. So I love that. I love that not only did he go out in style, but that he planned so perfectly to avoid what you just said, any of his victims from profiting off of this. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't remember you addressing this, and maybe there is no information out there, but have his siblings talked about any of this? Were they interviewed? Do you know? I think
I remember them talking a little bit, but it was more about Marv as a young man and their family and growing up.
Yeah, I learned about him that he led a rescue effort for a buddy that had been trapped in an avalanche or something. I mean, this guy wasn't some I hate everyone. You know, it was, look, you pushed me to this point, damn it, and this is where we're at now.
Yeah, he was a good man. He was a reasonable man, and I think part of the reason I say that I think he was probably autistic is just that intense sense of justice that is very typical of people with autism spectrum disorder, including a bunch of members of my family. I'm probably the least autistic member of my dad's side of my family.
And the fact that
I see that a lot, I especially with my father. You know, he has such a strong sense of what he believes to be right and wrong. You know, and of course, every person has a different moral compass of what's right and wrong. But when he perceives something to be immoral or perceives something to be unjustified, it sticks with him. It is like I can think of things that are a decade old that I know he still is holding in there.
Hanging
and
on
I have the
to.
same. I have a similar ability to hold a grudge, to be fair. But yeah,
awesome.
It's like that intense sense of like, no, this has to be right. This has to be just. We must get justice. Because again, he could have just sold it. He could have gone to Cody and been like, you know what? I'm sick of this. Give me $250,000 and I'll screw off. But at a certain point, it got into his head, and this is something that a lot of people have asked, is like, why didn't he just leave? Why didn't he just sell the property? He still would make a profit over what he initially paid for it. Why not just do it? Why not just leave? And the answer is that it was about justice.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the money at that point. It wasn't about, pride. It was about these people did something wrong, and they should pay for it. And if I don't make them pay for it, they never will. And so he saw it as his moral duty. It was his purpose to make sure these people paid for their crimes. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss, is this was not out of spite. This was out of a
sense of justice.
Immovable sense of justice.
Yeah.
And
you talked about earlier, like the route that he took in town was very deliberate. It wasn't haphazard. It targeted specific places.
He did accidentally hit a store that was owned by somebody he wasn't trying to target, and you can see him veer towards it and like, oops, come back.
My bad.
And that's how you know, like he didn't want to hurt anyone physically. He just wanted to cause property damage.
And do you recall who owned the hardware store where it ultimately ended? It's okay if you don't, but he ends up in the hardware store, and while you're looking that up, that's where he made the literally
also
fatal calculation.
Yeah, I forgot to mention something, by the way. A local gun store owner named Sean Nelson told Brower, I believe, that it might have been one of the other local organizations to cover it from around Granby, like Rocky Mountain News. But one article quoted local gun store owner Sean Nelson as saying that people knew he was building the armored bulldozer. They just didn't know why. And that's gotta have been something that like all the guys involved in this on the city council were like, that can't be good.
Right. We should
not illegal.
Right.
Like we can't do anything about that. But it can't be good.
Can't be good. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, he does go into the. Here, I can probably find it if I look for the right word. Basement. There we go. It was Gamble's.
Gamble's Appliances. Okay, so he hits the concrete plant first, then the town hall and library.
Important.
But you explained earlier.
Important to explain who owns Gamble's.
Yeah. So after the newspaper office, the bank, all of these are connected in one way or another to his I guess, what do you want to call it? His epic, right? Then we get to Gamble's Appliances. Who owns that?
Casey Farrell, who served on the board from 97 to 99 and was involved in screwing him over on the redistricting, or on the rezoning.
Okay. All right, so he's obviously picking deliberate targets for this June 4th, 2004 trip around town, we'll call it. So he gets to the appliance store, and then what happens to the Killdozer?
It's believed he was not aware that Gamble's had a basement, and that when he bulldozed into it, the bulldozer went into the basement, could not be moved out, and at that point, Marv took his own life with, I believe, a .357 Magnum revolver, just like this one. So,
yeah. So, I mean, I guess eventually we have to assume he knew it was going to come to an end.
Yep.
That
and
way.
That's the thing, is he sealed himself into the bulldozer.
Yeah. Right.
He had more targets. He ended it here because he knew it was over, and he knew that eventually they were going to find a way in. So he figured
you had an undersheriff.
Better to go out from one of these guys than from one of these guys.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, and I guess, an undersheriff
and yes, I do just
jumped
keep
on
a collection of bullets on my desk for some reason.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Right. I'll show you my little... Got my little We the People revolver stand. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's very
Gotta
cool.
have a desk gun.
You know what? Now that you mention it, thank you for the wake-up call. Yes.
Dude, just an aside really quickly. This guy is a Smith & Wesson Model 13-2. They stopped production in, I want to say, 1982. They were one of the classic police revolvers. They go for $12.50 to $17.50 online. I got that for $5.75 at a gun show.
Nice job.
Never,
nice job,
ever decide not to go to the gun show because everything's going to be overpriced. You never know what you will find.
That is such a great point. Yes. Gun show, knife show, go there.
Yeah. Also, just great people at those kinds of events.
Amen.
I remember I was recently at one where there was an African American. I live outside of Philadelphia by about an hour, and there was an African American woman from the city out here who was trying to buy a gun for self-defense, and she was clearly very unfamiliar with the concept and how all of these things worked, and she kept asking questions of the guy running the booth. And he's clearly like, I got other customers I'm trying to get to, like, who don't have questions. We're just trying to buy a gun. And it was very funny because, this is a very clearly urban African-American woman. And myself and several other very not urban white men come up to her and we're just like, yeah, let me help you. What questions do you have?
I mean, that's America.
How can I help you? So you're looking for something that's got higher capacity? Okay, well, you're probably going to go with a 9mm or a 10mm then. Like, just talking her through the process and, like, where is this a holster? Is this going in your purse? Okay, it's going in the purse. Great option would be, like, the Smith & Wesson, the Shield X. That's what I have. And it was just this very heartwarming thing to see, like,
I love it. Yeah.
all of these people from different backgrounds.
Those that run, whether it's a booth at a gun show or a gun store or something like that, I mean, let people ask questions.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you can kill someone's interest in guns just like that by trying to make them feel stupid or not having the time for them. But you have inspired me now. I'm probably not going to keep my Beretta up here, but I'm probably going to put a little Taurus right over here. Something. I got to have something within reach. I mean, you don't want to be a sitting duck, am I right?
Yeah. That's why I like this one, too, is because it's, it's easy to pop a couple rounds into the cylinder and just be good to go.
That's awesome. Well, listen, I want people to go subscribe to your channel on YouTube. It's The Lore Lodge. You're an excellent presenter, Aidan.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that I found your video and your telling of this story and get the facts out there about Marvin Heemeyer and the truth around the Killdozer story. Sure, it is lore, but it's also a story of... Americans, we really love our freedom, and when you step on it over and over and over again, then you get to a point where, look, what was the quote? Hold on, I don't want to screw this up because it's such a good. I was always willing to be reasonable until I had to be unreasonable. Sometimes unreasonable men are forced to do unreasonable things. Marvin Heemeyer and Killdozer.
Yeah. And if you want to see the part we didn't get to of the details about the rampage, that is towards the end of the video on our channel. So if you feel like you got all of it here, and you just want to catch the rampage, quote unquote.
Yeah, you've got video footage.
Yeah, we have that in there.
That's good. Okay. Well, Aidan, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time, sir. And
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope we can do this again at some point. And like I said, I'm going to let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to spend a little bit more time with the audience because, like I said at the onset here, there's just so much breaking news today that I want to at least touch on. So, Aidan, I hope that you will keep in touch, sir. Thanks so much for your time.
I will, and if you want to, when I've got some time, I'll obviously reach out to me and ask. But I'm working on the missing scientist stuff right now.
Okay,
so I'm happy to come back on to chat about that.
Oh, okay. Do you have no pressure? I know you got a lot going on in your life. You got to fight the man, and you got to get moved and everything. What's the ETA on getting this documentary out on the missing scientist?
The first episode's already out. That's on Monica Reza.
Okay.
So
that's right. You're doing individual episodes.
So the next one coming out is going to be a video that goes, all right, here's the basic information about each case. Are we able to immediately rule anything out as not connected? And then who are we going to be focusing on going forward? And I'm also going to talk about what is JPL, what's its functionality with NASA, those kinds of things, and giving people sort of the groundwork to understand what's going on here. So that's going to be out probably 2 Fridays from now.
Okay.
Let's see. The 15th is Lost Dutch Girls Part 3. The 22nd is Patrice Andres. So May 29th.
You tell me when you want to come back, because I don't know where in this order of stuff. You've got my email address.
I'll reach out and I'll let you know what my availability looks like. I might be on the road by that point, but as long as I can get to a hotel.
I look forward to it. Yeah, I look forward to it whenever you're available, sir. Until then, everyone, please go and subscribe to Aidan's channel, The Lore Lodge. Okay. And by the way, yeah, thank you, sir. Have a great day. I'll let you go here, man. Thank you so much, and thank y'all for thank you so much. I want to say this. Kellen, I love that. I love that. My brother and Odin. Please don't hate yourself. I thought of the one that I least care about. That's why I said I would put the Taurus up here, off to the side here. That's specifically why I picked that one to put within reach here, because it's the one I'm not going to be using, I hope, you know? So anyway, I appreciate the $4.99 as well. So thank you very much. So, okay, I was telling you all that there's just so much going on today, and I thought, you know, we have to talk about some of this stuff. And if there's no interest, then I'll just talk to myself for however long it takes to present this. But there's just two stories today that I want to at least address with y'all on some level. I want to talk about which one of these did I want to do first? Let me think here. Oh no, my Killdozer realized that the Killdozer part of the show's over, so he's taking a nap now. Let's. Did you see the COVID stuff? The CIA whistleblower today. Let's go over that real quick. And then I want to also talk about Cynthia West with the accusations against Representative Thomas Massie. But the COVID stuff, the whistleblower, James Erdman III, appeared before a Senate committee today. No Democrats bothered to attend, I'd like to point out. This was Rand Paul's committee hearing. And I have a few clips that I did pull for you. And before I do this, let me say that Erdman made it clear that he knows what happens to whistleblowers. And you ask our buddy Steve Friend, FBI whistleblower, you want to talk about, I don't care what assurances they get in private or in public at these hearings, as Erdman got today, bad things await for whistleblowers in the United States. You come out against one of the three-letter agencies and you think that you have protection, I have a bad feeling that James Erdman is going to quickly discover that's not the case. And maybe we'll have him on one of these days here and talk to him about maybe the fallout from what he did today. Because even in the middle of the hearing today, the CIA responded. Because remember, this, I don't think we knew who was going to be on the stand today other than a current member of the CIA. And you're going to hear former member of the CIA pretty soon, I betcha. Just based on the conversations I've had with former whistleblowers. Ask John Kiriakou, right? You ask, I mentioned Steve Friend. There are others. Nothing good. There's nothing good at the other end of their stories. And God bless them for coming out and speaking the truth the way Erdman did today. But he might be someone to... you might want to set a Google News alert for James Erdman. Erdman. But during the hearing today, the CIA... I mean, they put out a press release just basically denouncing the whole thing. To which I think it was Senator Johnson, Ron Johnson, and I know Senator Rand Paul. I'm trying to think of who was it that just, they were like, screw you, CIA. We're doing this hearing. And actually, that'd be a good bumper sticker. Screw you, CIA. Or maybe a t-shirt I'll make for myself. I don't know. Okay, but I took some notes here during the hearing. And again, it's always a challenge. Am I able to read them when it comes time for me to present them to you? And that's always a problem. Oh, yes. I made this note during the hearing because it came up that Dr. Barrick had said something kind of foreshadowed, like, "Hey, we're going to get ourselves a pandemic soon, I guess." Well, how ironic, since he was working over at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill on the COVID stuff. And if you recall, in the early days of the COVID pandemic, and this is not, I'm not being a China apologist, I assure you. But you remember early on, they said, hey, that was created in North Carolina. And people were like, what the heck? What is he talking about? Yeah, well, I mean, that's where Dr. Barrick was. And was definitely working hand in hand with the Chinese on the COVID stuff. So now Rand Paul said today that he's convinced that it just escaped accidentally from the lab. Okay, cool. If that's, I mean, you're welcome to believe that, Senator Paul, and I appreciate all that he is doing in trying to get the truth out there. I don't know. I don't know if you are. I definitely know that I'm not convinced that it was an accidental leak. Remember, it was the election year flu, and boy, they sure were ready to go with that. What was that thing they did? Remember that in the fall of 2019? What was it? Somebody will know. 201. What the hell was it? Somebody will know. Not named Keith. Okay, let me play a few clips from the hearing today. Just kind of catch you up here. This is the CIA guy, James Erdman III, talking about Anthony Fauci's role in this cover-up. Let me rewind that for you.
Public health policy would have been very different had the American public been made aware that a virus from a lab in China was going to serve as the foundation for an emergency use authorization mRNA products being mandated by the former administration. Dr. Fauci's role in the cover-up was intentional. Dr. Fauci influenced the analytical process and findings by leveraging his position to ensure the IC consulted with a conflicted list of curated subject matter experts, public health officials, and scientists. This included some of the authors of the paper, The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2, and other public health experts who have been in his orbit for the last 20 plus years.
So what had happened was the CIA, they were trying to figure out kind of a unified response to, okay, where did the COVID stuff come from? Was it a lab leak? Was it in the wild? And they had I forget was it 8 out of 10 scientists? I don't know. And then maybe it was 6 out of 7. No, I'm not going to do the 6-7 thing. Because there was just so many numbers thrown about, and you know me with numbers. I'm so good with them. But it was clear that they were ready to say, hey, this came from the lab, Wuhan, and then that's where he's saying that Fauci comes in and is like, yeah, why don't you guys get back to work here? And this whole thing, it's only a 90-minute hearing, so if you get a chance to watch it, I would encourage you. You want to talk about trust the science, bullcrap. It was trust the narrative, and it's infuriating to go and listen to the stuff, and it's exceedingly infuriating if you lost a loved one to any one of the lies, whether it was from COVID or the vaccine that resulted. Watching that hearing today will definitely not sit well. It shouldn't sit well with any American. Now, there's something else, and I want to get to something that Mr. Erdman said that isn't directly related. Well, we'll get to that. But first, let me just, if you missed it, here is Senator Paul in the hallway, just kind of a little summation of everything today. And as we know, on Monday, how ironic, I was sitting there watching this thinking, how perfect. Monday, the statute of limitations runs out on Fauci lying to Congress. 2 days later, we have this hearing on this exact topic. And Rand Paul says something here. This is an interesting little summation of today's hearing. It's not that long of a clip, but boy, he says something that it should not give me any kind of hope, because damn it, nothing that happens inside the Capitol building should give me any kind of hope. Nothing in D.C. But look, if you want to hold out hope that there's earthly justice still waiting for Fauci, I mean, well, it's buried in this clip.
Senator Paul, can you give us an overview of what happened at the hearing today?
What's your top line? The top line is that there was a scientific consensus at the CIA that the virus came out of the lab.
That's what I forgot to say earlier when I said they said, hey, go back. When they came back out, that's when we got the, well, it's we can't determine. It was just like a neutral response as opposed to, yeah, it came out of the lab.
There was a lab leak. Anthony Fauci intervened in 2021, and at his behest, it seems like the CIA changed their changed their conclusion. Internally, their scientists were concluding that it came from the lab. After Anthony Fauci came in, he influenced their higher-ups to overturn the idea that it came from the lab. I think that's a pretty serious, breach of protocol, and shows that there was a conflict of interest from early on.
Chairman Hall, where does this go from here? Obviously, the testimony that we heard about the extent of the cover-up within the CIA and Dr. Anthony Fauci's role in all of this, what is your next move?
We're continuing to interview people. We're continuing to look at documents. There's more news to come. We're going to have something next week that also has to do with these conflicts of interest.
Is there anything that can be done regarding Anthony Fauci, given the fact that the DOJ has now not, pursued that 5-year statute of limitations?
The 5-year statute of limitations would also apply to a July testimony, so there are a few more months on him lying to Congress.
What? What's
There's
that?
also the question of, destroying records, destroying emails, encouraging others to destroy emails, which is against the law. There's also the question, conspiracy charges have been filed against David Morenz, who was a longtime lieutenant of Anthony Fauci. But there's always the overhanging question of the pardon. We've never had a pardon challenged before that I know of being successful, but we've also never had a pardon that was given for 10 years for unspecified crimes. So that really is, something that I think is and should be questioned. The other question is whether or not you can pardon somebody if the president really never was conscious of the person he was pardoning and it was done by an auto pen. So there are a lot of questions, and I've sent several criminal referrals, on Anthony Fauci, and I hope they will be pursued. At this time, I was going to introduce our whistleblower's attorney.
Okay, so the attorney comes up there and she makes it clear, yes, my client is not looking forward to retaliation for being a whistleblower, and she leaves it at that. So he knows what kind of right he's in for, and you find yourself, I find myself less and less saying, I can't believe this is happening in America, to, oh, it's just standard fare for what happens in America. It's sad. It truly is. Now, there's a nugget from this hearing today. And again, I don't know if you have any hope from what Rand Paul said, but I heard 3 or 4 reasons to have, I don't want to use the word hope, to have stuff to I guess, keep tabs on, to set more Google News alerts for. How about that? Because again, nothing ever comes to this stuff, even though we all know that it should. But there was a nugget in this hearing today that I must find for you, and shame on me because I can't find the tab. Malinak, so help me. I swear, I'm gonna beg you to sit here and wait for me to rediscover this clip, because we got a good, here it is. We got a good band name today. Okay, so if you're in a garage right now, maybe your high school buddies are coming over here, and you're like, man, we still don't have a band name. 40 boxes, 40 boxes, 40 boxes. That's your band name. Here's why. Hang on. Maybe we'll do some proper 12, because this is, I'm fucking so pissed off right now when I think of this clip. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
When the dig ceased operations,
All right, so we're done going through the COVID stuff, okay? So we're done, just let the man talk, Keith. The clip speaks for itself, Malinak. Shut up.
the CIA also took back 40 boxes of JFK files and MK Ultra files being processed for declassification by D&I Gabbard. The legislative and executive branches will continue to be misinformed if this type of behavior is not addressed.
So again, that's not how we do things in America. That's how we always do things in America. And like I tweeted out last night, and it holds even more true after watching today's freaking COVID whistleblower testimony, the CIA has been the president of the United States since November 22nd, 1963. Uninterrupted, I'll have you know. And before, quite frankly. Anyway, R.I.P. John F. Kennedy. This clip, it enrages me. And I've seen this clip going around, and it stuck out like a sore thumb today when you're listening to the hearing. But is there... Correct me if I'm wrong, because there are so many of you, the vast majority of this audience, save for a few of you, and you know who you are much smarter than me. I didn't look at the hierarchy chart on the Google, or I didn't go to Wikipedia, but I feel like, and again, help me out if I'm wrong. I feel, Malinak, you got a whiteboard. I feel like, sorry, I have to move the Killdozer. All right, Marv tried. He tried to be reasonable, y'all. Okay, the way I understand it, and if I have this wrong, I will be looking at the chat, and I'm being sincere when I ask this. I thought that the Director of National Intelligence, who is Tulsi Gabbard, I was of the understanding before this clip came down the pike, and she's big on getting she feels like a good guy. If I'm being misled, so help me. But Tulsi Gabbard feels like a good guy who is trying to get this stuff out there. Whether it's MK Ultra, JFK, the COVID cover-up. I thought down here you have Kash Patel. How is he still employed? I thought that John Ratcliffe, I thought that he, being the head of the CIA, I thought he reported to her. Do I have that wrong? And I'm not being facetious. I'm asking. Don't make me look up Google Images hierarchy of national intelligence and what have you. Again, here we go. Retaliation time from the CIA.
Operations, the CIA also took back 40 boxes of JFK files and MK Ultra files being processed for declassification by DNI Gabbard.
So, right? Because the CIA took them. This was at the behest. These things were being researched, gone through, because Gabbard ordered it. But yet the CIA comes in. Am I hearing this right? Now I'm going to go back and look at the chat. Let's just see. Oh, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, we're going to have Aidan back here. I love that guy. You should definitely go to the Lore Lodge if you're not familiar. And I feel like I was the last one to be familiar. Thank you! Born genius, always doing my job for me. Google says Ratcliffe reports to Gabbard. Gabbard said we're going through these files. JFK, MK Ultra, COVID. When they're done with the COVID, CIA goes, all right, we'll take those 40 boxes, great band name, of JFK and MK Ultra files. I got so pissed off today. As you can tell, I'm totally over it now, though. Okay, I just wanted to get that out there. It really didn't sit well. Not much does sit well with me these days. Let me clean up a little bit around here. Hang on. It's one thing that's off camera here that you never see. I talked about these garbage cans over here. Yeah, plural. They're overflowing. And what I do is every few shows I have to come in here and take the trash out. And I've waited too long. The floor is, well, it's carpeted by paper balls. Let's put it that way. Okay, the Thomas Massie thing. All right, let me get this here. You guys want to talk about that? Do you care? Do you want me to? Because you remember, like, one of the things I like to do, and it's very rare that the timing works out, where there's something in the news that we can do a start-stop on. I had a lot of fun with the Zelensky in the Oval Office that happened on a Friday late afternoon or something, and then we hung out here on Saturday morning to start stop. Man, I wish all the start stop videos that would come out of Washington would come down the pike late on a Friday, because then we'll just make a regular thing of it on a Saturday morning. No, don't make promises, Keith, please. You already have no time whatsoever. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to play, if you're interested, and I'm sure many of you have seen this already, but if you would like to, you're welcome to hang out here, and we will do a start-stop on the Thomas Massie accuser, Cynthia West. Cynthia West, and the thing speaks for itself. I'm not gonna play the lead-in by the attorney that she went to tell her story, but I will say this: one of the interesting aspects of this video is the guy doing the deposition. There he is. He's kind of setting up the thing. And let me give me 1 second here. So his name's Marcus Carey, and I'm sure that you're well aware that Marcus Carey has run for office against Thomas Massie. Now that's missing from this guy's setup. I'll just say that. And then there's another guy who also ran against Thomas Massie unsuccessfully, and he's the other guy, the other attorney who's pushing this out. And I don't know that I wrote his name down. But anyway, here's this guy. All right, he sets it up. He's like, hey, serious allegations. Okay, so here we go. All right. And now he tries to make it sound like I'm just asking her questions. But of course he puts this graphic here. For evil to succeed, it is only necessary for good men to do nothing. Now, I hope you know me well enough to know that I don't care who the person is, a politician, a celebrity, anyone in the news. Look, I'm gonna go where the facts lead me, and if my opinion changes, that's the whole basis of the Monday thing we're gonna start doing, which I still haven't decided if I'm gonna record those. I think I'm gonna record them ahead of time and just post them. But that starts on Monday, and it's the Make Your Case Monday. And like I said earlier, when I've described the Monday thing, I'm either going to make the case with an unpopular opinion and hope that you change your mind, or maybe I'm going to present something where I'm going to wait for some persuasive case, some feedback from you guys. So anyway, but my point is, I don't want you guys thinking that I'm going through this with any preconceived opinion, because as I was watching this, my initial reaction was, well, I mean, this is believable, but everything has an agenda. And there's always the rest of the story, which I failed to print up. No. Oh, it's sitting right over there. Hang on. Hang on a second. There it is. I thought I printed that damn thing up. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. You know one thing I just did? That's right. Proper 12 is... Tanner's lapping it up. He's going to be shrunk in a minute. There we go. Cynthia West. For evil to succeed, good women say nothing. Yeah, we got it. Thank you, Bonhoeffer. I got a mess over here. It smells like alcohol. Because it is.
Good afternoon, Cynthia. My name's Marcus Carey. We just met for the first time a little while ago. Is that right?
Yes.
And you're aware of...
Okay, so my initial response, again, I'm not going to stop every 3 seconds. But I didn't realize it when I watched it yesterday. But my initial response was, who took my paper towels to clean up messes like this? Anyhow, my initial response that I didn't realize yesterday was, she went to a political opponent of Massie's. I want to give, just like with Massie, with Cynthia, I want to give you a fair shake. Why are we sitting down with a guy who was a sworn enemy of Thomas Massie?
This is both being audio and video recorded.
Yeah.
I'm only hearing one channel. I hope it sounds okay to y'all.
You also acknowledge that you've been sworn to tell the truth?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Before we go much further, I'd like, if you don't mind, ask you to identify yourself, tell people who you are, what state you live in, what you do for a living.
Okay. My name is Cynthia West. I live in Florida. I'm a social worker and I'm a mom.
I want to be respectful of your time, and so I'm going to get to the point.
Okay, hang on. Is Stephen Doan, because he responded, this is a lengthy response to this. Is he, and I'm asking, I'm sincerely asking, somebody do my job for me. Stephen Doan, D-O-A-N, is he the spokesperson for the Massie camp? Well, Born Genius. Well, somebody looks that up for me. I'm going to play the rest of this.
You reached out to me some time ago, is that right?
Yes.
And that was, at that time you said you'd been referred to me. How were you referred to me?
Oh, we have a mutual friend.
Oh.
How do we have a mutual friend?
Oh, through political circles.
Uh-oh.
So
Well,
are you somewhat involved in
Okay, that's a little vague, but I'm just sorry, just let it play.
politics?
Yeah, it happened. Yeah.
All right. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Are you working with any candidates in Kentucky in any race?
No.
Are you in any way affiliated with any political organizations that are actively engaged in any races in Kentucky?
No.
Are you being paid by anybody to be here?
No.
All right, cool.
Has anything of value been offered or promised to you by anyone for your testimony today in any way?
No.
All right, good.
Well, we're in Kentucky. You live in Florida.
Yeah.
We're in Crescent Springs, Kentucky at the moment.
Okay.
How'd-
Side note. Because we're dangerously close to being able to put a 1 on the board of the shows without a bark. But if y'all can hear Winnie right now, I think we're going to have to keep it at a 0. I digress. Because that's what I do here on At the Mic.
How'd you get here?
I flew.
Did
Okay.
anybody pay for your flight or your travel in any way for any reason?
No.
Now, in our prior conversations, Cynthia, you shared with me the subject of today's interviews, and I'm going to ask you several questions about those things. Is that okay?
Yes.
Let me try to put these discussions in a time frame.
Let me just let me move this tab over, make it easier for me to hop back and forth. I'm just making sure that no one wants to interject with any thoughts. Please share them if you have them, and I will try to address them here as we go along here.
Right now, it's May of 2026. Do you know Thomas Massie?
Yes.
What was your first contact with him?
We started DM or private messaging on X or Twitter about mid-August 2024.
Okay.
Who initiated those direct messages?
All right, so mid-August 2020. Sorry, I'm literally swimming in proper 12 right now. Mid-August 2024. I just want to establish this just because. I mean, it's definitely germane here. Thomas Massie's wife dies on June 30th, 2024. We're in mid-August 2024 when he slips into her DMs, as it were.
He did.
He initiated. Okay.
Did he reach out to you then on Twitter by direct message? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, he responded to a public comment in a private DM.
Had you ever had any prior contact with him at all, other than maybe commenting on his post?
Yeah, just that sort of thing, but no, not really.
All right. So after that first direct message, did you have any other contact?
He started liking all my posts and started messaging pretty frequently.
And this was when?
Mid-August 2024.
Okay. All right. So he's a single guy. She's a single mom, right? We get more information on her status in a moment. The question born genius was Stephen Doan, Stevendon. Is he the spokesperson for the Thomas Massie campaign? And can you hear Winnie barking?
Did he ever call you?
Well, we started talking shortly after that on the phone.
All right.
Were you able to discern from these conversations why he was calling you?
Well, I mean, we talked about being adventure buddies. He was pursuing a relationship.
No.
I mean, that's what it seemed like.
People are good.
Hang on. Representative Stephen Doan, Northern closest allies in the state legislature. Okay. All right. Just checking. Thank you very much. All right. I seriously, I wasn't quite sure.
Ask. So I'm going to ask you.
Because I have a statement from him that I do want to throw into the conversation here momentarily once we get a little bit further down this road.
Are you married, legally separated?
Legally separated.
And at the time, were you
Yes,
legally separated?
yes, I was.
All right. Legally separated. Massie was single. I'm sure that there's plenty of thought on this. 6 weeks after his wife's death, he's pursuing a relationship. I don't know how people grieve. I don't know. But I just want to at least clearly establish that he is a widower when he is, quote, pursuing this relationship.
If you would please briefly describe when the next time was that you spoke with him or saw him. How would you describe the way he was treating you at the beginning of this, what you thought was a developing relationship?
I mean, it was very intense, very very romantic, intense relationship that was forming very quickly.
Okay.
How did you perceive what he was doing? Was he just being nice, or?
No, I mean, he was being nice, but he was pursuing a relationship.
Okay.
I don't want to get into the details.
Thank you. Get
That's
faster. Get
private,
there faster.
and I respect your privacy.
Thank
But
Do
could
ya?
you please describe how your relationship progressed?
Like I said, it was very intense, very quick. He wanted to move to the next stages very, very quickly. I ended up getting a promise ring. We spent a lot of time together when I didn't have my kids because it was week on, week off. So we were either, talking and messaging, or when I didn't have my kids, then I was either in Kentucky or he was coming to Florida.
Right, she
and we
lives
did
in
go on
Florida.
some other trips too.
Other trips.
So this wasn't just a long distance relationship. I mean, you actually visited with him in Washington, D.C.?
Yes,
And you visited with him in Kentucky, where?
at his home.
When was this?
I mean, it started Labor Day week.
And you mentioned that he took you on trips. Where'd you go on trips?
We visited a friend of mine in Savannah, Georgia, and then we went.
And that's where, by the way, that's where the video and the audio get out of sync, and it's so annoying. So I don't know how long you'll be able to stand that. Of course, if you're listening to the podcast, you probably don't care. What you probably care about on the podcast is the fact that Winnie, I guess, is being tortured downstairs. I don't know.
To South Africa.
Okay, South Africa. So I looked up, because she doesn't say when that trip was. So,
South Africa, a business trip?
and by the way, just let me inject my own bias here. Not on either side, whether Cynthia or Thomas. The questions. I don't like how the way he enunciates. You know, like what kind of trip was it? Was it a business trip? I mean, ugh. Anyway, Thomas Massie took trips to South Africa. November 20. This is publicly noted trips to South Africa. November 2024, November of 2025. So this would match the timeline of November of 2024, since on November 2nd of 2025, he got remarried. Not to Cynthia West, obviously. So we have to assume that this is a November of 2024 trip. So yes, things are moving quite quickly if we're traveling internationally. There you go.
I would say political.
I need to ask, you're a single mom.
Yeah.
How were you able to take trips?
Well, I mean, it was when I didn't have my kids and wasn't working, and then he was,
Did you have a shared custody?
yeah, it was 50-50 with my custody, half on, half off. And financially, he paid for most of those trips.
So it was the week. Did you go? These trips and these visits were on the weeks when you did not have.
When I
children?
didn't have my kids, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And I wasn't working.
Now you said you got a promise ring. You were visiting with him and taking trips.
That's a great point. Poor genius promise ring. What are we, 15?
How would you say the relationship was developing? Was it a relationship that was either going to continue or end? How did he put it?
Oh, well, because of my work schedule and my schedule with my kids, and it was intensifying so quickly. He said, we either ratchet up or we ratchet off.
Ratchet up or ratchet off. By the way, try not to watch the video, because I mean, like I said, it's so annoying the way this guy's video is with the sync up and everything.
And because my schedule didn't align with his, that meant that I needed to leave my job, which terrified me. That's when I got the promise ring and everything. So yeah, there was a lot of intense pressure to move to that next level.
Did he want you to come to D.C.?
Yes, he did. He wanted me to go to wherever he was.
Yeah, he likes her, obviously, quite a bit.
All right. Did you tell him you just couldn't get up and leave? Or, I mean, did you agree to just get up and leave? Or
I was very scared, but it was kind of like that was my ultimatum, right? And this was my fairy tale, at least so I thought, right? And so he I didn't have a job, but then he texted me and he got a job for me at another congressional office that would have allowed me to, work that schedule to be with him.
Okay, so now keep in mind at this point, all right, so he is, according to her, rapidly pursuing her. It's mid-August that he slips into her DMs, judging by the public timeline. It's November when he goes to South Africa, takes her with him, and gets her. He's about to give her a job here. He found her a job in D.C. because he wants to be close to her, and so far, I guess the biggest sin, if you want to call it that, would be, wow, he moved quickly after his wife passed away, right? That would be the biggest, issue at this point if people want to have an issue with Representative Thomas Massie over this.
He got you a job
Yeah.
at a congressional office
Yeah.
so that you could be in D.C.?
Wow.
Had you applied for a job?
No.
How did you learn that you suddenly had a job?
Well, he texted me the details, so he kind of arranged it with another member of Congress,
Okay. Who's that?
Who was the job with?
Victoria Sparks,
Yeah, get there faster.
Is that the congresswoman from Indiana?
Indiana. Yeah.
Indiana? Is it?
How does he know Victoria Sparks?
Well, they're colleagues and friends.
You told me that they were close friends, and I looked this up because I did not know her, was not familiar with her. I think I read that during the last vote for the Speaker of the House, Thomas Massie only got one vote as Speaker of the House, and that came from Victoria Sparks. They have to be pretty close for her to do that,
Yes.
wouldn't you say?
That's
Yes,
a fun
they are.
fact.
So he had a very close friend in Congress give you a job so you could be in Washington, D.C. with him.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you know much about her before you took that job?
Well, shortly before I took it, I had someone from another congressional office that I knew that sent me Worst Bosses on the Hill.
Uh-oh.
I
Sent
learned
you a what?
an article about how she's the worst boss on the Hill. Thomas assured me that it would be okay, but yeah.
Okay, so there you go. Now we've got Victoria Sparks, Congresswoman, I think Indiana, if I'm not mistaken. Worst boss on the Hill, or the worst boss. But I got you a job with her. So, you know what? I got you close to me. So we're going to make this thing work. Just here's your job.
She has kind of a history.
Well, how did it work out for you working for her?
Not very well. I ended up getting fired, so there was that.
For the record, Miss West begins employment with Victoria Sparks in December of 2024, and she ends up getting terminated on March 31st, 2025. And I believe Sparks' office said, yeah, she had a probation period. She didn't make it past that. The end.
Well, how long did you work for her?
Oh, 6 weeks.
Wow, okay, so 6 weeks, there you go. I mean, that's even less than what I was able to find.
Okay. Well, during that period of time, how did you perceive your relationship with Thomas Massie?
Well, I ended up breaking off the relationship shortly after I started working for her.
Okay, so I believe it was January of 2025 that Cynthia West breaks off the relationship with Thomas Massie. She's about to explain why she broke off that relationship with Thomas Massie.
And after trying to be in DC with him and work for her,
Why?
well, he wanted me to engage in behavior that I wasn't comfortable. So I couldn't stay in that relationship.
Now, Is this not something that every couple has to decide for themselves? And I'm not going to get tawdry or anything like that, but isn't that a conversation that at some point you have to have that conversation, right? And apparently they did, according to Cynthia West. And according to her, she wasn't into what he was into. Well, it's a good thing you figured that out, right?
Well, what did he say did you tell him you weren't comfortable?
Yeah, I did.
Did you object?
Yes, I did.
How did he react?
He'd get angry.
Can I let me speak for all the guys out there. Just a moment, if I may. Never mind. Don't.
How did he treat you?
I would say emotionally abusive.
I mean, that's not cool. I don't like that. If that's a fact, that's terrible. But I want to know what that. You know what? That's a good time for this post from Representative Stephen Doan. Let me read this to you. This page is just got. I got the proper 12. Man, I am just a mess. I'm sorry. If you're still hanging on, if you're from the Lore Lodge and Aidan Mattis and you're still hanging out, that's what we do here. It's the least professional show you'll find. Live at 3 p.m. Eastern. You're on X and YouTube. As a family law attorney, this is Stephen Doan. As a family law attorney who has represented numerous victims of domestic violence, I have been deeply troubled by the circulating, quote, sworn statement from Cynthia West, alleging emotional abuse by Congressman Thomas Massie. After listening to the statement twice, I was struck by the complete absence of any specific verifiable allegations. There were no claims of physical abuse, no harassing communications, no documented threats, and no evidence of any kind, only vague assertions without supporting facts. Out of professional duty, I examined the available record. Miss West has a documented history of making false abuse allegations, notably during the very period she claims to have been involved with Congressman Massie. She filed sworn accusations of emotional and physical abuse against the father of her children. On October 1st, 2024, she swore under oath in an affidavit to these claims. However, after the court reviewed all the evidence, the allegations were dismissed in full. I have sat with real victims, both men and women, who have endured genuine domestic violence and harassment. I have fought alongside them for protection and justice. It is precisely because of that experience that I find it so damaging when someone makes false accusations. It undermines the credibility of legitimate victims and erodes public trust in the system. Congressman Massie has earned my trust over many years to the point that I would entrust him with my own children. These latest allegations appear to be nothing more than a desperate attempt to interfere in an election against a principled public servant who has consistently worked to protect women and families from real abuse and exploitation. False claims like these do real harm not just to the accused, but to every legitimate victim seeking justice. And on that front of the election, coming up on Tuesday, by the way, early voting begins tomorrow in Kentucky. The election day is Tuesday, May 19th, with, what's his name? Ed Gelrein? Did I get that? 3 days ago. This is the polling numbers. You ready? Apologize for doing multiple things at once here. Bear with me. 3 days ago, it was, I'm looking at Kalshi. It's kind of like Polymarket, where people put their money where the vote is. Sorry. And it was 72 for Massie, 72% chance that Thomas Massie would win that primary on Tuesday, to Ed Gelrein's 29%, okay? And like I said, I apologize for doing 7 things at once here. I'm getting there, I promise. Okay. So I checked today, and there's an actual poll. There's an actual poll that shows Gelrein up 48 to 43. So that's quite quite an interesting number there. If you take in leaners, just people leaning one way or another, it's 53 to 45. Gowrine over Massie. So, I think it's fair to say that that there's some fallout from what we're going through right here. So that is that's interesting, right? Let me get back here to that video for us to watch.
What'd you do?
Well, I mean, at that point, I broke up with him.
Okay, fine, we're done.
Did he ever make any contact with you after you broke up with him in an attempt to either rekindle the relationship or apologize?
Oh, no. Not for that.
Then what happened after you broke up with him?
Well,
Did you keep working in D.C.?
I did. And it was bad. And, you know, I had to go to ethics, and I ended up getting fired.
Okay.
How'd you find out you were fired?
Oh, a text message.
Was there any kind of allegation that you
Can I-
engaged in misconduct? Any reason given?
Can I just say, when the head of the FDA sends a text to the President of the United States, is that just how society works now? Like, because I remember hearing about breakups happening over text and being shocked. Shocked, I say. Wow, really? That's weak? Not even a phone call? Never mind the in-person thing, but not even a phone call? They broke up with you on a text? Well, apparently now we're resigning and we're firing people over text. I don't know. Maybe I'm just old. Well, I'm not a maybe. I'm definitely old.
For you being fired?
No, I hadn't done anything wrong.
How did Victoria Sparks react
When,
when she fired you?
well,
I'm not trying to be nitpicky. I'm not. But I feel that when you're the employer, you can fire someone for any reason. Now, is she suggesting that she was fired because she broke up with Massie? I really don't know. I don't know if that's what she's...
I mean, obviously she was upset. I mean, because she was concerned about me and engaging in ethics and those sorts of things.
By the way, my gut told me this. Yay, me. And I looked it up just to make sure. Is it illegal? Oh, I'm sorry. We haven't gotten to that. Hold your fire, Keith.
Did she ever criticize you for anything?
She criticizes all of her employees for all of the things. She's a very...
I would like to know what the average tenure of a Victoria Sparks employee is. I think that would be very germane to this conversation. She may just go through staff, and if you don't have the ability to handle it, then you're gone.
angry person. You know, I had never been written up for any issues. She was expanding what I was doing. But it was,
Okay.
you know, when I started, she screamed at me for going to church. But she was engaging in behavior that I was concerned about. And so I believe that is why I was fired.
So this is rapidly turning into an issue more for Victoria Sparks than Thomas Massie, right?
All right. Now, are you familiar with the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights?
Yeah, I am.
How did you become familiar with them? How did you find out about them?
So I had been talking to ethics about some of the things that were happening, and so there's the Congressional Accountability Act, and they had said that these people in this office might be able to help me, so I started engaging with them.
When you made contact with them, were you provided with an attorney?
Yes.
Were you required to fill out any forms or identify any evidence or
Yeah.
identify witnesses?
Yeah,
Did you comply with all those requirements?
I did.
And in the course of filling out those documents, did you by any chance list Thomas Massie
I
as a
did.
potential witness?
I did, yes.
How did he react to that?
Well, Out of courtesy, when I started the process, I called him up to let him know.
They broke up. Remember? They broke up. Then she was fired. Now she's calling him to say, hey, I'm filing an ethics complaint against Representative Victoria Sparks.
And he was very angry. And he said, you're just one person, that you can't make a difference, that you need to just walk away. And then he had $5,000 that he said that he would give me if I could just walk away.
Okay. All right. He's trying to, he did her a favor. He's the one that introduced her to Victoria Sparks. He's trying to keep the heat off of Victoria Sparks. I guess maybe he feels responsible for this whole mess between these two women. And look, can you go away now? I said, is it illegal to pay someone to drop ethics charges against members of Congress? No, it's not. It's not. Now, this is where this former political rival of Thomas Massie, the attorney questioning her here, this is where he's trying to imply something. Now, can I just say that it's not against the law to keep cash on hand? All right, Americans? You don't need me to tell you. You don't need Keith freaking Malinak to tell you that. So whatever he's implying here is just stop it.
I didn't take it, though.
Did he offer you a check?
No, he has cash, so it's part of his cow money, right? It's
Cow
his
money.
non-traceable money.
Now, what does that mean, non-traceable money? To purchase cows with cash? I guess I don't know how the heifer community works. The pork belly world, or the head of cattle. I don't know. And I'm even less understanding when I have some proper 12 in my system. But I'm just trying to figure out, is it I use cash wherever I can. Anyway.
No, wait a minute.
Oh, wait a minute.
You said it's part of his cow money?
Yeah, because he's got cows. He sells cows and gets cash, and
Okay.
he keeps it kind of.
He doesn't report it?
No.
She feels like she made a mistake there. Like, she doesn't want to get Massie in trouble over that, I think. No. Leading the witness, Your Honor.
Is it kind of.
He doesn't report it?
No.
This guy wants the IRS to come down on Massie so hard. I'm just trying to figure out, has he done anything? I'm sincerely asking. Massie's not my congressman, okay? I'm sincerely asking. In the 18 minutes and 35 seconds of this so far, has he done anything illegal here? And again, maybe he has, and I'm not reading between the lines the way Mr. Marcus Carey wants me to. Which, by the way, when I'm done with this, just a couple more minutes of this, there's a video. I have not seen it. I just saw right before I went live with Aidan. I saw that he had posted a video, and I'm looking forward to watching that for the first time with y'all. I have no idea what it says.
So how did he react when you wouldn't take the money and walk away?
Well, he was very angry at that conversation.
All right. Have you pursued both the ethics complaint and the claim under the Employee Act despite his efforts?
I did. Yes, I did.
Are either or both of them still pending?
Yes.
Are the
Hang on. Pardon me here. I'm sorry.
All right. Have you pursued both the ethics complaint and the claim under the Employee Act despite his efforts?
I did. Yes, I did.
Are either or both of them still pending?
Yes.
Are the things you've told me about your complaints to both the Ethics Committee and for the retaliatory firing contained in those documents that you filed with the government?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that when Thomas Massie handed you or offered you $5,000 in cash that you were the main witness in a federal legal proceeding seeking a remedy for what you believe was an injustice?
Yes.
Has there been any resolution of either one of those proceedings to date?
No.
Have they made any efforts to resolve this with you?
Yes. So I have an offer. It's at the House for approval, but settlement.
You have an offer of what?
Settlement for $60,000 to settle the case for the retaliatory discharge and the Congressional Accountability Act violation with the Office of Victoria Sparks. But if I do that, then I have to sign an NDA.
Which Axios has seen. So she's apparently not BSing here. So I just hope you understand that I will never purport to sit in front of you thinking I understand every damn thing in the world and that I know all and you should listen to me. I try to learn along with you and from you on many occasions. I guess the one thing I'd like to point out is that Thomas Massie rails against the Congressional Slush Fund to make accusers go away. Where's that $60,000 coming from? Is that from him? Like I don't know. I'm sincerely asking. Where's that $60,000 coming from? That would be interesting. So I'm not saying anything illegal, even if it comes from the Congressional Slush Fund that I cannot believe we as Americans tolerate. There's so much that we as Americans tolerate that I can't believe we do. But anyway, so far, I'm looking for what Thomas Massie has done that is illegal. Because when I find that, then I'm going to be just as pissed as the people who hate Thomas Massie because his name is Thomas Massie. I'm going to be just as pissed as they are.
And so I can't do that.
But I'm not there yet. Are you?
You're saying that you were offered $60,000 only if you remain silent about all this?
Yes.
I can't take the guys enunciate about all this. I'm sorry. Nitpicky Keith. Sorry.
Do you have any documents to demonstrate that?
Yeah. I mean, right here.
Oh. What do you got?
Have you had further contact with Thomas Massie other than what you've described?
No, we haven't. We don't communicate anymore.
That's because you would. Never mind.
Don't you think that today's testimony might cost you the $60,000?
Oh, I know it will, but I mean, I've spent so much time fighting for transparency, and justice and accountability that if I did this, then I would call into question my own integrity. I wouldn't be able to sit with that, so I can't do it.
Other than the fact that this settlement is conditioned upon you keeping silent, do you have any concerns that there might be any other recriminations taken against you or retaliatory acts taken against you
Oh,
for
absolutely.
what you're doing here today?
Yes, I mean, I know about, he's got his Massie's nasties and his whole gray ops. Then they've got
Time out. I don't know what that is. Massie's nasties and gray ops? Like, I'm asking. Can you message me if you know what a Massie nasty, like, is that an official, is that a hashtag that I've just never seen? And what's a gray ops? I don't know. Sorry. I will say this. I think one thing we can all agree on, if she's telling the truth, Thomas Massie regrets the day that he slipped into her DMs.
all these burner phones and accounts and not to mention his following, right?
Right.
I know what the future holds for me or could hold for me, but it goes back to that integrity piece.
Well, I mean, on top of being a mom, you're a candidate for the school board, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm running for school board.
I mean, don't you think that this might even have some negative impact on your school board
Yeah,
race?
but if I'm trying to make a difference there and I want accountability and integrity, I have to walk the walk,
How long have you been considering making this public?
Oh, too long.
Why now?
I'm going to have to sign that. I mean, it's at that point where I have to make that choice. And I can't do it.
Cynthia, if you don't mind, I'd like to say, in my opinion, you're a very brave lady.
Okay, thank you. Glad we got that in there. Oh, crap. Did I close that? No. Hang on. Y'all bear with me here. I'm checking something here. Okay, good. Whew, I was just checking. The clock off to her side there. I was just making sure that it was working. Because if it was stuck on the same time, I was going to have something else to be pissed off about. But it was a real clock with battery in it. Okay, so there you go. That I wanted to make sure. Because I don't know. 100% of y'all could have already seen that. Or 1%. I don't know. But I wanted to make sure we went through that together. Of the things to be outraged about today, see, I was already outraged about Anthony Fauci's role in so many lies. But this right here, this pulling back MK Ultra and JFK files, I feel like with the Massie stuff and with the CIA COVID whistleblower stuff and with the president visiting China stuff, I feel like this pulling back JFK and MK Ultra, I just commit that to memory. The CIA is your president, and you will like it. Okay? The CIA has been your president for the last, don't make me do math on the air on the fly, 37 plus 6 is 43, 63 years. Is that right? That's your president. King CIA. I am so angry about, I am enraged about that disclosure today by the CIA whistleblower. But anyway, okay, Massie's and Hasties are his fan base. I need a okay, guys, before we say goodbye, by the way, I'll see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, on The Blaze, with Pat Gray Unleashed. We've got a lot to discuss, obviously. But before we go, Born Genius, thank you for pointing out that Massie's Nasties are his fan base. Look, the 4 or 5 of you that watch At the Mic religiously, we need a name for you. Keith's? No. You don't have to put Keith in it. At the Mic's. You guys brainstorm among yourselves. Maybe tomorrow we'll have something. Anyway, so, oh yeah. Bro, working class thoughts, I'm with you. I always wonder how Fauci got away with the AIDS scandal back in the 90s. I want to know how he got away with testing on orphans. Anthony Fauci, it can be argued, and it's a toss-up between him and Bill Gates, but I think it's Anthony Fauci. Maybe the most evil American, I was going to say in our lifetime, maybe in history. That'd be a good poll. Who would you put on, if you had to put 4 people on that poll, who would you put? Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates? Who else would you put? If I need 2 more options. Let's think about that. Anyway, I appreciate you guys hanging out, especially with the overtime, like you said, they're Born Genius. Yeah. And by the way, Working Class Thoughts is going to be a guest, right? Isn't that your handle? Coming up in a couple weeks, right? We've got a fun topic coming up. What day is that? I can't read my writing across. I'm not even going to try. Anyway, if you missed the Tuesday throwback, it was Stu Bergier, formerly the Glenn Beck radio producer, and of course hosts the show with Dave Landau over at The Blaze, and also does his own thing with the Predictable Show. But part 2 will drop on Tuesday. My conversation from 6 years ago with Stu on his amazing life. But before we get to that on Tuesday, we have the Monday thing that I've got to figure out how I'm going to do that. I don't even know. I just picked the date without having a real plan. It's the Make Your Case Monday starting, and the case will be, we're going to make the case that the Founding Fathers hated democracy. All right? That is going to be our first Make the Case Monday conversation. And then, let's see, what is next Wednesday? The greatest sports teams of all time. That's going to be what we're talking about a week from today at 3 p.m. Eastern here on X and on YouTube and wherever you're listening to this podcast. And oh boy, Thursday deep dive next week is going to be, we're going to talk about cryptocurrency, the Clarity Act, all bunch of stuff with that. But before then, tomorrow's deep dive is the Jesus Discoveries Part 2. If you missed that, scroll back about 6 weeks. We had Dr. Jeremiah Johnston. He will be back here with us tomorrow, just 22 hours from now. So, awesome. Thank you. All right. Yes, I was right. Yes, on the 28th. So that's the Wednesday wild card. Will be a fun conversation that we'll get into as we get closer. I'll explain what that conversation is going to be about a couple weeks out. All right, kids. Thanks for hanging out. We have run the gamut today, from Killdozer to the COVID cover-up, Anthony Fauci to the Thomas Massie accuser. We've covered a lot of ground, and I appreciate you hanging out. I really do. Please share this show wherever you can. Rate it, review it, do all the things. Subscribe, whatever. And don't forget the Lore Lodge. Thank you so much to Aidan Mattis, great guest on the Killdozer, and Marvin Heemeyer. So until we see you just less than 22 hours from now,